Hi Fahim, how are you, sir?
I'm very well. How are you doing,
I'm
Mr.
good. I'm
Gordon?
good. Thanks so much for accepting my invitation to come on the podcast. I wanted to talk to you because I had a recording sent to me of your excellent speech outside the magistrates' court on Wednesday on the Julian Assange when the judge obviously sent the extradition to Priti Patel on the Julian Assange trial. How do you feel about everything that's gone on down there? And obviously, if you can tell me a little bit about your background as well, that would be great.
It's part of this epic journey that how we human beings go through our, this evolution and through the history that the powerful people and those who want to make money from different ways of from old colonization to modern colonization, and then if somebody wants to come in front of them and challenge them, they are treated in a different way, and somebody comes up and exposes their truth, and then they treat them in a different way. So it's really sad, but this is part of our history. This is how the modern colonization, modern slavery, and modern persecution is. It's very sad, but when you understand it, then you know how to treat it, how to struggle against it, and how to gradually erode these evils.
Yeah, you mentioned history there. Sorry, carry on.
So it's everybody who is involved, they're making history. It's the history is not made by one person. Only one person becomes the icon. Like for us, Julian Assange became the icon, and Julian Assange told the truth about these illegal, criminal, and artificial wars. Illegal, criminal, and artificial wars. And he did not make any statement from himself. He did not, go out to secretly film them what they were doing. He did not go to their homes to expose somebody's personal secrets. And the way he exposed the truth, it is the truth, it was there. It was making the American soldiers, war veterans, and American government employees and contractors who were witnessing these atrocities, these crimes, these killings, bombings, pedophilia, drug smuggling, all of them, they were making them sick in the stomach, sick in the brain. They cannot take it anymore, and they vomited it. Look at Chelsea Manning. Look at Edward Snowden. Look at the thousands of other soldiers that they were involved, and they were part of this government, that they were ordered to commit crimes. Look at those soldiers. They throw away their medals. Have you watched their videos?
Yes, I've seen them. I've seen them, and I've interviewed soldiers who were spun a pack of lies, and did tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. An illegal war that you have some insight into, I believe.
Yeah, and I have talked to their families. I've talked to them, and I've talked to my relatives, to all of them. There are two sides of the story. One side of the story is that it's related to Julian Assange telling us the truth about these wars and crimes from the documents that the soldiers were writing to Pentagon and to their government, that, for instance, one of the WikiLeaks papers, it exposes the truth about financing pedophiles. It's called Bachabazi. They are a group of warlords they brought to power, like I call them Danpar, Pampar, Japap, means NATO's invading forces, slaves and puppets, and Punjab fascist and evil armies, puppets and slaves, and pharaohs, criminals and warlords. Dostam, Haqiq, Khalili, Sayyab, Rabbani, Gulbuddin, Ahmad Shah Massoud, Karzai, Ashraf Ghani, Hebatwa, they're all of them, slaves of this war.
Mm-hmm.
The paper on WikiLeaks, it says they were financing the pedophilia. One of the warlords was paid by Pentagon and the contractors to hire young boys, young teenagers between 10 to 15, to dance, to be forced to dance for them and become bachabirish, and that's how the pedophilia culture is. They kidnap these young boys, they sell them into slavery and taken by one of these warlords, human rights violators. They're forced into, dancing for them. And then they are raped by these warlords. And they became sex slaves for them. And the other day I told a story of a British war veteran. He told me himself the story. In Mazar-e-Sharif, he was there distant in 2002. The villagers came to him and they complained that the son of one of the villagers, who was a 13-year-old boy, he was kidnapped by the warlords and kept for a few weeks to be gang raped by 6 armed men, to eventually submit to become a sex slave of Bachabirish. And the boy was missing for a few weeks or months. And then once he submitted, they give the word to his family that the boy is safe and he's this guy's Dostam's commander's Bachabirish, because he had no choice. Publicly, repeatedly every night to be raped by 6 people. So you think this is the only chance of survival, otherwise they would kill you. And this 13-year-old boy informed the family that he was alive, and then the family came to see him. When they saw him, the father went and talked to the villagers. There is the only chance if we can talk to these foreigners. They are probably from, in 2002, they were not saying they are from NATO. 2002, they were saying it's from, United Nations, like security forces. So they thought it's United Nations. These infidels, these kafirs would be better. They came to this British soldier and told him the story. He had no authority to intervene in these affairs, but the story was so compelling that he forced them. He said, let's investigate. When they investigated, it was true. So I asked him, what did you do? He said, I just went there and I ordered him to release the boy. And the guy was so scared, he released the boy. I asked this commander, I asked this British soldier, you know what happened to this boy? He said, I don't know. I said, he became a suicide bomber. He will become suicide bomber because he has got no place in the society. And these stories are told to us by Julian Assange. Julian Assange wasn't there, but these documents came to Julian Assange. If it had come to anybody, a lot of people would have refused to publish them because they would have been scared. This is what Julian Assange is different from the rest of the world, from the rest of the humanity. He had the guts. He took, this challenge, and he took the risk for our children, for our people. And the bombings that happened on the mosques, and repeated bombings, repeated killings, kidnappings, and there are other stories of smuggling, other stories of, the Apache helicopter killing, civilians in Iraq, the videos, the documents, he released them. And nobody's talking about those crimes. Why those crimes were happening? Why did they kill our people? Why did they commit crimes? Why did they support the warlords? Why did they carry on this artificial war? Because that artificial war has cost American taxpayers $8 trillion. And that has cost American 800,000 war veterans. They became, sick with the war, against the war. You know the story of Mike Preisner. He's a vocal, war veteran. He's against this war. He called them illegal and criminal wars. And I called them artificial. Because I studied through Robert Dreyfus's book that this war is illegal, criminal, and artificial. It's made in Pentagon by this evil person, Khalilzad, Zalmay Khalilzad, who later became, the special envoy, and then to Iraq, to Afghanistan, and then in the peace process. Everything was designed to make this $8 trillion and the cost of 800,000 American war veterans' lives being taken away from them, suffering from PTSD, so many of them committing, suicide. 500,000 NATO soldiers, they are suffering from PTSD, and their lives have been destroyed, and they are committing suicide. So many Australian war veterans, special forces, after leaving Afghanistan, after leaving this criminal wars, they realized they have committed crimes, and they went to Afghanistan and went to those families asking to be forgiven, asking for forgiveness, asking to be pardoned. They went to those families because they knew they committed crimes. Those soldiers, they throw away their medals. They're all suffering from PTSD. So this is what they have done, the Pentagon has done to their own people, to their own taxpayers, to their own soldiers. And that is what made these people sick and vomited these documents and give it to Julian Assange. And I'm sure Julian Assange, I haven't interviewed him, I haven't talked to him, and I'm sure Julian Assange must have felt not this side, but the side of the story of our people. They killed in this war, Pentagon and NATO's criminal leaders and politicians, like I call them Donner Spur, American, this is called US defense complexes, military industrial complexes, slaves and Pentagon slaves, like Bush, Blair, Merkel, Johnson, and then Ashraf Ghani, Karzai, Howard, Johnson. All of them, they are part of this, responsibility. They committed crimes against my people, and they committed genocide, and they killed 1.5 million people. In the rally. Do you want me to show you the pictures of children they have killed? These are the children they have killed. Look.
Yeah.
These are the children they killed with a sonic bomb. These are the children they killed, with suicide bombs. And these are the children they killed with bombings, bombardments and rockets. And they were all done intentionally. They knew what they're doing. And it's because they wanted to, use their weapons and make money out of it. I myself, it's not that one case, this is what the story is. I'm a victim. This is my 16-year-old brother that they have killed in Kabul in 1992. He was killed July, I believe it was July 27th in 1992.
How old was he?
He was 16. He was only 16. He was going to school.
His whole life ahead of him.
And he was killed. And then I have lost another brother during the Russian invasion, a 2.5-year-old brother. I'm a victim, and I feel how, painful it is for families, for the victims themselves. To the last minute, the last second, they want to survive. My brothers, these children, 1.5 million, couldn't survive, and they were killed by these criminals.
They don't care, do
And
they, about
how?
the collateral damage they cause? They don't care about the lives that they're just destroying here, do they? It's just
No. These are the warlords they brought to power. Look, these are the warlords they brought to power, and these warlords, these are, I call them Karzai, Ashraf-Ghani, Dostam, Muhaqiq, and the whole project is created by, Khalilzad. This is Khalilzad. This is Zalmay Khalilzad talking to Obama, talking to Bush, because he's designer of DPG. And there is no difference between Obama and Bush, because they're both part of this game, running DPG, Defense Policy Guidance. Afghanistan was fundamentally, important for Pentagon, these illegal and criminal wars, because Afghanistan was chosen in this DPG that 2 years in Pentagon they worked, Dick Cheney, Paul Wolfowitz, Scooter Libby, and Zalmay Khalilzad. Zalmay Khalilzad was head of the project. He was given this task by Senior Bush. If you read Robert Dreyfus's book is called The Devil's Game. Elizabeth Gould and Devil's Game, yeah. And Devil's Game, if you read, you find out about DPG. And also you read another book called Afghanistan's Untold Story, written by Elizabeth Gould and Paul Fitzgerald. And there is another book, there's another documentary about this criminal illegal war called Dirty War. And also there is another documentary about this illegal and criminal war by Carmela Bernowski, an Australian journalist. She was embedded, and she reported the rapes by JSOC section of Pentagon,
yeah, I've heard of it.
And there is ample evidence to show that Afghanistan was, targeted because Pentagon needed for 4 objectives. The first objective was Afghanistan was fundamental to trigger mass US military upgrade. For 20 years, they upgraded all their military, all their sensors, all their bombs, bullets, guns, rockets, missiles, airplanes.
And
drones,
they obviously
everything.
they need somewhere to test these things out. They can't use them all in Palestine, correct?
Exactly. Test them, make money from them, and upgrade them, and sell them. Nobody questions. Like a factory, have got no enough funds to always test and upgrade without making profit. So they have to make profit. So for that profit, this is how the Pentagon budget needs to be kept higher. That's the second objective. The third objective, American military need to be, bigger. And the fourth object, which was established in 1950s, that was to destabilize Central Asia through Afghanistan, USSR, and control it. This is how this artificial war cost our 1.5 million lives, 800 American war veterans, 800,000 American war veterans' lives, 500,000 NATO servicemen lives. They were all destroyed, and they made $8 trillion.
And this is, I suppose, why
this is how
there was never an end game with Afghanistan, was there? There was the reason for being there was Bin Laden originally, and then it changed to this.
This is how it happened, through these warlords. These, with these warlords, with the warlords and NATO together would commit crimes, kill people, kill children. They rape people, they rape children. In my village, Wardag province is a province where the very peaceful people are all, going after education. Wardag, if you ask any people from Afghanistan, they would tell you how the people from Wardag are so much into education, but how they turn the people from Wardag into becoming suicide bombers. This is how they did. They used these warlords, commit crimes, rape their girls, rape their daughters, kill their bride and grooms on the night of the wedding, and then make videos by ISI, and those videos would be changing the minds of people. And then these families would, the victims would be denied justice. Once these children or their families are denied justice by these warlords would not give them justice. What is going to happen? They obviously would have to go to the southern Afghanistan, to Peshawar and Quetta, which is controlled by ISI and Pakistan's army and Punjab fascist and evil army. And there, for them, they needed money. So where do they get the money from? These warlords, I call them, scissor. The whole game is called the scissor.
Right.
The scissor has got two blades.
Yes.
So one blade of the scissor is this one. They would commit crimes. Ashraf Ghani, Karzai, with the help of NATO, and their government, I call them Danpar, Pampar, Jabab, Karzak, Ashraf. So they would create victims, right? These victims have got no money, nothing. They are denied justice, and their families would go to where? I said would go to Peshawar and Quetta and Kandahar. So in Peshawar and Quetta and Kandahar, what they do, they don't have money, they don't have weapons, they don't have suicide bombs, they don't have training, they don't have recuperation center. They've got nothing. They're just living in camps.
Yeah.
So how you train them? How you finance them? CIA cannot finance it directly. ISI has got no money because there are like 1 or 2 million people are displaced. 1 or 2 million families are affected. Somebody's land is taken, somebody's daughter is raped. The story of 13-year-old boy I told you.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of such families were forced to go to where? Peshawar and Quetta, to occupy the southern Afghanistan. And then how did the ISI finance them to become Taliban? This is how the story comes here. This is the other blade of the scissor, which is the Taliban. I call the Taliban leadership. This is Mullah Hibatullah. Before him, it was Mullah Akhtar Mansour. And before them, it was Mullah Omar. I call them Passar, Pampar, Japap, Khardajal, because they are the Khardajali Imarat. I call them Khardajali Imarat, Pentaguni Imarat.
What does that translate to?
Skampati. They are created by, it's not, they call themselves Islamic Imarat. I call them Pentaguni Imarat, not Islamic, Pentaguni. Pentagon?
What does that translate? Oh, Pentagon, you mean?
Pentagon, yes.
Yeah.
I call them Pentaguni Imarat.
Okay.
I call them Khardajali Imarat. I call them Japapi Imarat. Japapi means pharaohs, fascists, and criminals.
Okay.
I call them Skampati Imarat because they have made from Islam political, religious, cultural heroin and opium. With that, propaganda, propaganda, I call it, because they made from politics, from religious, and from culture, such propaganda, such poison, that it's like heroin and opium. That's how our children become suicide bombers.
Yeah,
Quran. That's why I call them Skampati Imarat, Heramandayi Imarat, Japapi Imarat. And they were supported by Pakistan's army. These Khardajal Hebatak, Japap, Skampati Imarat, Khardajal Hebatak. Mullah Hibatullah, I call them Hebatak, to demean him, to disgrace him because he's a criminal. And he was supported by Pakistan's army, by ISI, Punjab Fascist Civil Army. Behind him, they are their mullahs and madrasas. And behind him, it is the same evil Obama and Bush and Blair. And they were given access to Helmand's opium. And Helmand opium, for the past 20 years, created $3 to $6 trillion worth of wealth for CIA, Pentagon, ISI, and the Taliban. Every year, the Taliban had access to $10 to $12 billion funds from Helmand opium production. So this is the other scissor, blade of scissor. And they committed suicide of our people. And what they did, They trained our children, the victims, into Taliban, gave them guns, made them suicide bombers. And again, these suicide bombers, these families of the victims who were forced to flee northern Afghanistan, Kabul and Wardag and the other provinces, into Peshawar and Quetta, southern Afghanistan. These family members, these families of victims, instead of targeting their killers, Dostum, Hatek, Khali, Karzai, Shabghani, or invading forces, they target Afghan people. They targeted soldiers, police officers, schools. You know, they exploded so many suicide bombs in mosques and schools. Who did it? Again, Pentagon and CIA, because that's how this illegal and artificial criminal war is all about. This all game is, and they carried on.
It's still happening, isn't it, as well, Fahim? It's still happening.
This is what I realized. This is what I realized when Zalmay Khalilzad in 2003 asked Donald Rumsfeld, do not, if you invade Iraq, do not take the forces from Afghanistan because still needed it. You know what Zalmay Khalilzad told him? Zalmay Khalilzad, this is in foreign policy. This is a document I taken from policy. He said there are no good targets in Afghanistan. There are so many good targets in Iraq. So create targets. So for target creation, they started to committing crimes against our people, bombing schools, bombing mosques, raping children, raping women, raping elderly, to create angry people. Angry people would go to Peshawar and Quetta, and ISI would train them as suicide bombers and Taliban. They come back and good many targets for Pentagon. That's why they did the research in 2007. They went more forces to Afghanistan and carried on the war. And the more victims they created, the more victims' families, they became Taliban and suicide bombers.
The more chaos, they create, the better things are for them. The more reasons they've got to spin, the more propaganda that they can publish to justify whatever they want to do.
Yes, yes, very true. So this is how they were bringing new weapons. When this game was ending, because Pentagon knew in 2018, they announced that there are no more funds, there's no budget for smaller arms. And if you remember in 2019, in Thanksgiving in Bagram, this Trump came and said they have spent $2.5 trillion on heavy weapons. So what does it mean? When he announced it, I said American forces are leaving, these invading forces are leaving from Afghanistan and preparing Afghanistan for the second phase of heavy weapons. And that is how I predicted they were going to bring the Taliban into power. Nobody believed me. I said the biggest enemy of our people in Afghanistan and the army and everybody is Pentagon, CIA, Bush, Blair, Ashraf Ghani, Karzai, Bajwa, ISI, NATO's political and military leaders, and arm manufacturers. I never used the word of West. I never used the word of America or Britain and England. A lot of people, they ask me, do you hate Americans? Do you hate Australians or Germans or Russians? I said, no. The same way you treat your criminal in your country, I treat them the same way. I believe these criminals like Bush and Blair, who made money from the genocide of my people, they committed crimes against you. They looted you and they killed your children as well. And they made 800,000 of your children suffering from PTSD and committing suicide. So whether I hate Bush and Blair or not, but I want their trial, I call them criminals. That's why for me, it's very important, instead of saying I hate them, I call them criminals. I call them warlords, human rights violators. I call them, they are pharaohs of our times. They have made themselves gods. And the same is with the Taliban. Because the Taliban, when I exposed them that they are puppets of Pentagon and puppets of CIA, they are not Muslims, they are Kharbajali Imarat, they are Skampati Japapi Imarat, they are non-Muslims, they are worse than infidels, they are, you know, the savages. They attacked my family. They came and said, we want to marry your married daughter. I said, which religion is this? They wanted to mentally torture him. Why? Because I exposed their contradictions. I said, tell me, the Taliban, which book sanctified the suicide bombings? Why your leaders don't commit suicide? If there are 72 virgins, nice girls,
good point, isn't it?
for those young boys, yeah, why don't they themselves commit suicide? Why don't their children, their wives, and their women, their mothers, their sisters, why don't they commit suicide, that they make my children suicide bombers? If you banned picture, video, televisions in 1994, you said it's according to Islam. Why do you sit now in front of cameras? All of you have got cameras, photographs, and television and cameras. So if that is from the God, who is this allower of it? Which God is it? What is the prophet's name? What is his book?
Mm-hmm. They've just,
they had no answer.
I noticed.
I said, if you say the killing of the Afghan military soldiers, or if you claim that because they are with infidels, so ISI is the biggest supporter of these NATO forces. Punjab's fascist and evil army is the biggest supporter of these NATO's invading armies, because they give you children, they give you bombardment, access to all bombardment to your families. So your leadership is part of ISI, they obey their orders. If that is from God, who is this God order from? And then the same way with killing our people, the same way with Pentagon give you the power and authority in Afghanistan. They dismantle Afghanistan's national army and the government. They give you as a booty. So tell me, which one is from God? It means none of them is from God, from Islam, from Quran. Neither the support for jihad of bin Laden, because you supported jihad of bin Laden against killing. When he claimed jihad, he said the killing of American soldiers, NATO soldiers, their allies soldiers, and their civilians, and the diplomats, he said it's legal. Mullah Omar supported him, gave Afghanistan into his hands, and committed all these atrocities. Now in Doha, you said you do not allow Al-Qaeda and bin Laden to carry on jihad against them anymore, and you don't allow them to collect funds in Afghanistan anymore. Now, if the start of jihad was according to Quran, now its opposition is according to which God?
Mm-hmm.
Which God allowed you to oppose it now, to support? You said you will not allow Al-Qaeda or other terrorist groups to hurt America, to create security problems for America and its allies. Now, if the killing of American was according to Quran, or your Islam or God or Muhammad, the saving of America and opposing jihad of bin Laden is according to which God? Show me. Which Quran? Which prophet? So it means none of them was according to Quran, suicide bombing, pictures, girls' education, women's work. You first time said it's illegal, it's haram, and now you allow some places and then allow some places.
It's twisting
Which
and
one?
manipulating. It's manipulating
Yes.
words and manipulating the medium for your own ends, isn't it?
Exactly. I found the whole manipulation. There are 16 points. When I raised the 16 points, and I said, none of your actions according to Quran.
What 16 points were these, Fahim?
The 16 points are the pictures.
Right.
The first one, the pictures, videos, cameras, and televisions were made forbidden in 1994. That's the point one. The point two is, now in 2020, all of them, they have cameras, pictures, television, and it's allowed. So you can see the contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
That time they made it illegal. And they said it's according to God, according to Islam, according to Quran. Now they made them legal. And I said, so who is the authority that allowed pictures, cameras, and television? The third point is about the killing Dr. Najib. And I said, if you say Quran tells you to dispense justice, and Quran tells you you cannot take the right of people.
Yeah.
Now you tell me, which Quran, which God allowed you killing Dr. Najib without? I know Dr. Najib is criminal. He is another puppet of Russians. He is responsible for the killing of 1.5 million people. But I asked them, when you hang Dr. Najib, I call him Shamparjab of Najib, means Russia's invading forces puppet, and he's a pharaoh, fascist, and criminal as well. I asked them, which Quran, which God allowed you to deny justice and kill him without trial, without court? And which God allowed you to take the right of the victims and kill him without trial?
The hypocrisy is like they make good bedfellows, don't they? Because at the moment you've got America, who, I mean, you know, the US and the NATO forces, who have, as you said there, they've enabled, you know, pedophilia in young boys. I spoke to Major Danny Shearson last year, who did a tour of Afghanistan, and he was telling me how he was asked to go to a party, and he thought he was just going to be there and smoking weed. And he originally said, yeah, it sounds good. But then he found out that this was one of those local local sort of, you know, the gangster in the area, as you and he was having one of these pedophile parties where they were having young boys. There was a word he called it for this party where they have these young boys dancing. I can't remember what it was, but this was. Yeah, this was, and it was happening in the open, and the American forces knew about it. That's why they told him he couldn't go. And he was on patrol one day, and he was walking through a poppy field, and he was like, "Where's this poppy field? Whose is it?" And it was the local police chiefs, you know. And so the corruption there is unbound, and the American forces are obviously controlling all this, and they've got the puppets and the warlords, etc. And as we found through WikiLeaks, we know that, you know, certain puppets and certain warlords they would keep and try and enable them because they've got control of an area there and its resources. But then at the same time, we've got all these, just a few weeks later, really, a few months later after withdrawing from Afghanistan, like I said, it's still a mess over there. But now you've got loads of reports coming out of Ukraine of women and children and boys being raped, and it's all over the media. They cannot stop talking about it, even though I've investigated the sources, and the sourcing on this is extremely thin. But every media outlet in the Western world is running with these stories. Where were they with the Afghanistan war, Fahim? Why weren't they crowing about this happening? I mean, we knew it was happening. They knew it was happening on the ground back then, and there was silence in the media over it. It's only because of WikiLeaks. And like I say, the sourcing on what was coming out of Ukraine at the moment is extremely thin. War is hell. We know that it does go on, but the sources as to who, you know, was at fault here is extremely thin. But with WikiLeaks, we've got the documentation that this stuff was going on. We know for sure that it was going on, and nothing was said about it back then. The rank hypocrisy is off the chart. And quite frankly, Fahim, it's borderline racism. You know, I say borderline racism, it's blatant racism when you think about it, because everybody's crying over the Ukraine, and obviously war's terrible. And I'm against Russia, I'm against all war and what Russia have done here. But where was the Western media and the tears for the Afghanistan children that you showed that were died? Where is the tears and the articles about all the children and the women in Yemen right now that are suffering the largest, you know, humanitarian crisis on the planet, or were for the last 5-6 years? I read something the other day about politicians in this country have asked more questions in the last 2 weeks about Ukraine than they have about the Yemen war, which we support and we arm and we train the pilots. They've asked more questions in the last 2 weeks about Ukraine than they have about the Yemen war in the last 7 or 8 years. There has to be some sort of reckoning here, doesn't there, Fahim? And it has to come from the ground upwards. We have to force it, because otherwise this is going to carry on forever. You mentioned Afghanistan and the history there of the American interventions, and all going back to the Russian intervention as well. It's just a pawn, isn't it? This country, poor country, it's in a pawn. It's getting pulled which way? What is going to stop this for him? You know, what for the future of Afghanistan and other countries that are
let's go back to the Helmand province. At the time of Mullah Omar in 2001, the opium production was zero. With Taliban regime was dismantled in 45 days, so there are no Taliban, no government, nothing. NATO is controlling Afghanistan, Pentagon is controlling Afghanistan, and their puppets are warlords. These warlords, as I showed you before, they are controlling Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
But Helmand production, opium production, didn't start with them. Helmand opium production started, with my knowledge, the information I have, documents from farmers, because Afghanistan was controlled by CIA. The CIA men went to the farmers, asked them through the warlords to start growing. The farmers would say, no, the Taliban would kill us, it's haram. They said, no, we will protect you. They said the government would not allow us, they would say, would protect you. So the farmers were given phone numbers by CIA, and CIA protected them. As soon as the local militia would go there to destroy these farms, you know, the opium cultivation lands, the CIA would arrive, and in 2-3 incidents, they killed Afghan soldiers, they killed Afghan police officers, because they brought the tractors to destroy these crops, you know, the crops of opium.
Mm-hmm.
But CIA, they killed them, they supported the production, and then they give the first hand of this production to the Taliban, 2 commanders called Qayyum Zakir and Ibrahim Sadr. Remember these names, you're recording them. Ibrahim Sadr, they are both of them now high-ranking Taliban. One is the deputy of Home Office, the other is deputy of Defense Office. And
I've lost your video, Fahim. Ah, you're back.
Sorry,
That's
I got
okay,
a
mate.
phone call. Yeah. So this is how the opium production was given to the Taliban. And Taliban, I told you, they got access to hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars. And $3 to $6 trillion was made by Pentagon, because this is an artificial war.
Yeah.
So how to stop it? The only way is to tell the truth and seek justice for the victims. All I want is, I want to take the cases of all my children to ICC, International Criminal Court, to try all these warlords, all these pharaohs and fascists, including the Taliban leadership. And that is a solution. This is the way I'm going forward. And I'm in contact with ICC. And sorry, I'm getting phone calls,
okay.
and I need to wrap it up. So the solution is, this is a solution to bring all these warlords, human rights violators, and mass murderers, including all these big names, to bring them to ICC. Even if one child's murder is blamed on Bush and Blair, just one second. So this is what I said. I want the first thing is, we need to know the truth about what happened in Afghanistan. And WikiLeaks and Julian Assange is very fundamental in telling us the truth and completing our truth. When I was saying these things, people would not believe me. I was saying these things for the past 20 years. What WikiLeaks and Julian Assange made my truth, you know, substantiated with documents written by them. And that's what I ideally want his release, that he is our hero of time, and we want justice.
It all starts there. It all starts there for sure.
We want justice for him as well. So yeah, we will want justice for them. We want justice for our children. We want to reunify Afghanistan, which is in 2 pieces. And then we want to destroy and dismantle the Prachao, political, cultural, religious opium and heroin, which I call it scum pot, because that is what the poisonous, you know, propaganda destroys the minds of our people, and that's how it is. And we will do everything to do. That's the solution. Sorry, I've got calls and I have to move.
Okay.
I wanted to say that there are 4 points. The solution to all this problem is justice for our children. That justice means the trial of all criminals. They should be behind bars. Tony Blair and Bush and all these Merkel and Jacob Ashraf Karzai, not Julian Assange. He should be free. And I want to reunify Afghanistan from Amud to Abbasin and Margala, and then dismantle these Kampat or Prachal. And if you can do anything for Afghanistan, the support these 2 points, the 3 points and 4 points I have. Thanks very much.
Will do. Fahim, thanks very much. Take care and we'll talk soon. Take care.
Thank you very much.